Hello,
How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm good, and I am loving your background.
The book looks familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today's episode of video series on Get Your Next Promotion. And I would also like to thank you for sharing your beautiful story for my book.
My pleasure. And by the way, a huge congrats to you for publishing your second book. I mean, that is so inspiring. So
Thank you.
yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Mahalakshmi. Introducing Mahalakshmi to all my viewers, although she doesn't need an introduction. Mahalakshmi is an HR leader with 22 years of experience, spanning various roles like head of HR, HR Global COE leader, and business consulting roles with Big Five Consulting and large scale transformation leadership. In her current role, she is head of HR India, Mondelez International. And apart from her work, she is also very good at painting. And I had the opportunity to see some of her amazing work. You're brilliant,
Thanks for
Mahalakshmi.
your generous intro.
Inspiring.
Thanks for your very generous introduction.
And to let you all know, Mahalakshmi has been very kind in sharing her story, her journey for the book. And it is featured in chapter number 9 on the topic of continuing learning and development in the book. Her professional journey, captured in the book, brings out the fundamental aspects of learning and provides readers with various ways they can continue to enhance their knowledge. It kind of exemplifies that to be a leader means to be a lifelong learner, and I'm sure she is. So, do read her story to know more. Today, we will be exploring a bit more about the topic of learning with respect to the growth we all look for. Mahalakshmi, when we last spoke on this topic, it was pre-pandemic era. I would like to start by seeking your thoughts on impact of pandemic on people. How do you think the pandemic has affected how people think about career growth in general?
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating question. And, the more I reflect, I think there are perhaps two things that are happening in terms of what's happening in terms of how people are, thinking about careers. One, I think in general, people have developed a huge sense of gratitude like never before, So I think
Hmm.
there's a sense of gratitude for what we have when you look around and, see so much that's happening, whether it's job losses or lack of opportunities or disease or poor health. I think a sense of gratitude is definitely coming in. I
Yeah.
think more importantly, the pandemic has also provided, people time to reflect. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people have kind of stepped back to say, hey, what is it that's important to me?
Hmm.
What do I really want to do with my life? And I
Hmm.
think some of these reflections are very powerful.
Yeah.
Anchors for people to really define what are their north stars. So
Hmm.
people have paused to kind of recalibrate their ambitions sometimes,
Yeah.
recalibrate, where they want to head, and then reflected on their own strengths, their own priorities in life, and sometimes recalibrated ambitions, and sometimes identified absolutely new ways, where they could chase their own dreams and their own development in a little
Hmm.
bit of a repurposed and anchored way, which has been, I think,
Hmm.
really powerful.
Wow. Wow. You used very powerful words, Mahalakshmi. Pause, recalibrate, repurpose. And I'm sure all these things are kind of going to help people to become ready for this new future, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think not only about new future, but I think it's been a great time for people to pause to really see what they want to do,
Hmm.
So I think the great thing is as people are emerging, I think
Hmm.
each one of us, and I don't want to make it a they. I mean, each one of us really is actually coming out even more clear on how we want to prioritize, what do we want to go
Hmm.
after, etc.
Yeah.
More than ever before. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Continuing on this subject of learning, Mahalakshmi, how important is learning for people who want to transition into leadership roles? What are your thoughts on this?
I think it continues to be absolutely important, right?
Hmm.
Because for people who are transitioning to leadership roles, I mean, I do maintain that three things are important.
Yeah.
One is really ensuring that before you transition, have you made the impact in your current role and learned whatever was there to learn from your current
Yeah.
role?
Yeah.
Secondly, being very focused in terms of understanding what more do I need to succeed in
Hmm.
that next role, that I aspire for. It could be a leadership role. It could be a step towards a certain dream role that, one has.
Yeah.
And perhaps the third and most important thing is, once you've contrasted your current role with the next role, also figuring out what do you need to unlearn, because sometimes
Hmm.
continuing to do some of the things you do in your current role is
Hmm.
not what will help in the next role. So
Hmm.
therefore, ensuring you've learned and made an impact in the current role,
Yeah.
figuring what is needed in the next role, both functionally as well as from a perspective or other capabilities perspective.
Yeah.
And three, then taking a moment to say, hey, okay, these are new things I need to learn, but is there
Hmm.
something I should leave behind or
Yeah.
unlearn?
Yeah.
Is perhaps important as people think about transitions.
Yeah. Yeah. So impact, focus, and very beautifully you explain unlearn, learn and unlearn. And when leaders, get into these senior leadership roles, most of the times they complain about time, that, we get less time. How should people continue with their learning as they are evolving into their functional roles, into leadership roles?
Look, I think eventually everyone has the same amount of time, so time is never less.
Hmm.
Perhaps what's most important, and I guess one refines it to an art form as one grows, is really the ability to prioritize what is important. So I think eventually it boils down to two things. One is the ability to say no, to perhaps things that are not important. It doesn't come very easily to many of us, right?
Yeah.
And the second is really to be able to filter and curate, what is it that I need to say yes to?
Hmm.
And, when it comes to learning, there's just too much around us, right? I mean, there is
Absolutely.
I think information or opportunities to learn are infinite, but I think to be able to curate to say, is this gonna give me the best use of my time or that, and it could be learning from podcasts, reading, networking. Any of these could be a source of insight, but to be
Yeah.
able to filter and prioritize is perhaps what is crucial.
Yeah. Yeah. Prioritization is very important. And as you said, saying no. Yeah, saying no becomes very
Mm,
difficult. I have never been very good
mm.
at it, learning on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also feeling comfortable in saying no, because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we're all mostly, perhaps it's cultural, we've all been
Yeah.
taught to serve and help and enable, but
Yeah.
it's very important to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and sometimes
Yes.
be able to ruthlessly figure out, okay, these are things I can't do because these are the
Right.
important ones that I need to make time for.
Right.
And putting space for that first and then filling up the rest of your time is so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. So now, going forward, let me bring something from the book actually. And this is one of my
Sure.
favorite ones. It's about self awareness. So, in your
Mm.
story, also, you laid a lot of emphasis on self awareness as well. So, I'm going to read some of the lines from the book which you said. You said, gradually, as one matures, one also think about leading an impactful life, and therefore learning about yourself, perhaps is as important as learning about others. And learning about the why of decisions is perhaps as important as learning about the what of decisions. So, Mahalakshmi, tell us more about learning about our own self part.
I think being anchored on purpose, to say,
Hmm.
okay, what do I really want to leave behind, or what do I want to really impact or touch is
Yeah.
perhaps so important, because then reflection helps us feed it and also figure how to really grow that that dream or that purpose or that aspiration that
Hmm.
one or that reality that one wants to create in one's career or in one's life. I think self awareness is perhaps not just about I mean the classical definition of self-awareness sometimes is about, okay, what are my strengths and what are my opportunity areas? But I
Yeah.
also feel self-awareness is having a very strong clarity on what matters to me. Because once
Ah.
you're clear on what matters to me,
Hmm.
then you feel really comfortable putting your
Hmm.
energy behind making
Hmm.
that happen,
Hmm.
without any guilt, without any lack of clarity on,
Hmm.
so much to do, how will I manage? Because then you know how to prioritize once the why is very clear.
Hmm.
I think the second piece, perhaps in terms of learning about our own selves, which I have found really powerful, is really having a very clear understanding of what gives me energy and what sucks my energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And leveraging that insight, because
Hmm.
once you know where your energy sources are, and it's absolutely
Hmm.
different for different people.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of my energy comes from music. It
Hmm.
comes from spending time introspecting. And if I look at some other members in my own family, their energy comes from maybe going out and meeting more people and spending time with others.
Yeah.
So once we know what gives us energy, I mean, then we know where to go when we need that dose, right?
Yes.
And leveraging that insight becomes really powerful as we handle whether it's ambiguity, stressful situations, volatility that is part of most leaders' lives, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
handling a really tough day. That really helps. And for
Yeah.
us to be able to reflect, I guess a lot of us have different styles. I
Hmm.
go back to books and a lot of me time and journaling.
Yeah.
But equally, I mean, I think having a bouncing off person like a coach or a friend who perhaps is can be a mirror to you is invaluable. And
Yeah.
investing in that is again, I think, a must do.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime return kind of a thing if you invest in some of these things.
Yeah. And I loved what you said, what gives me energy? Then anchoring from that point, right? So I think it's good to hear, good to say, but difficult to do, right? It's a
Hmm.
question of practice.
Yeah, I think it's a question of practice. I don't think it's difficult to do.
Yeah,
It's very difficult to identify. So once you figured,
absolutely.
for example, like I know that certain kind of music
Yeah,
peps me up. So at the end of a
yes.
tough day, when I'm low, I think just
Hmm.
remembering that I need to listen to that so that I feel okay again. It
Absolutely.
takes practice, yes, because then it
Yeah,
becomes, after a point of time, you don't need to think. It just becomes
no,
an automatic habit
yeah,
per se.
yeah, that right. And I think it starts from the intention that you have an intention to do it, intention to be aware of that particular thing, and then you start it, and then practice, and you're there. Then you anchor, you automatically centered there, and you automatically anchor from that point. So there's another point you shared with our readers in the book, Mahalakshmi, and let me quote that particular one. And my reading glasses on. You said eventually, as a leader, your value is in the insights you bring to the table. Remember, it's not in the technical aspects alone. And I know this also kind of relate to self awareness we have been talking about. My question to you is, what helps people for gaining the insights and then recognizing them as insights actually? Is there something that may stop professionals, stop people from sharing those insights with others?
No, I think you're very right. I think for most professionals to land impact, I think uh, leaders are valued for the perspective they bring on the table or the
Yeah,
insight they add to a certain situation. Because
yeah,
even more so with technology, getting better and better with time, a lot of analytics and data, can actually be just done by a machine. you know
yeah, yeah,
so the perspective that comes from seeing that data, in this
yeah.
example, different times, okay, and seeing the impact it
Mm,
has had, or
mm,
from having handled situations in different contexts and learning from successes and failures, not only your own but of others,
yeah,
is what kind of builds your perspective. And I think that's really what people look to from a leader. because I think that's really where a leader can really add value, and a perspective.
Yeah.
And to my mind, I don't think too much is coming in the way of people sharing insights with others. On the
Hmm.
contrary, I think in today's world, there are lots of people sharing a lot of gyan and a lot of insights. The challenge, I think, is the other way around. I think for learners to actually choose where do I actually anchor myself, and
Hmm.
keeping that curiosity and learner's mindset on, but equally
Yeah.
filtering out, saying, hey, this kind of insight seems to connect more with what I want to do. So this is, a person I may want to kind of follow, or this is someone I want to test my thoughts with, because here is someone who actually thinks completely differently from me.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think those are perhaps choices that learners have, to learn from things you resonate with, and to learn from things that are completely complementary, so that you can create something a little more holistic.
Yeah.
But I don't see any hesitation or challenges when it comes to people sharing. In fact, with social media on, we have more people sharing than
Yeah.
there are people willing to listen, and I think it's
Yeah.
created a reverse kind of a scenario, is what I
Yeah.
think. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, I totally agree. That there is a bombardment of information, overflow of information, and I guess the couple of words you said earlier. What kind of impact you want to create? What brings you energy? All these things are related. That what kind of information you want to take, absorb, and then reflect on it, and then work on it, right? So it's that kind of process, but it again comes with practice. And of course, I guess insights, what we're talking about with respect to leadership, it all leads to innovation. And without innovation, the organization cannot reinvent themselves. So especially in these times, I guess it's all important putting it all
I
together.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And by the way, I quite love the way, I think a few times you brought out the bit on practice.
Yeah.
And I think the reality is that some people naturally learn by doing it again and again and again, and
Hmm.
therefore
Hmm.
practice.
Yeah.
Some people actually learn really well by just watching someone else and saying, hey, I'm sure we're going to make sure I don't do it like this.
Yeah.
And then there are some who I personally feel very inspired with, who connect dots, who are
Yes.
fantastic at picking, seeing something in I don't know, in a movie or in a song, and drawing a parallel into corporate life, or seeing something
Hmm.
happen in politics, and seeing how can one integrate that into a personal life situation.
Yeah.
So I think different styles for different people, but I think
Right.
being very intentional that I need to keep growing and evolving,
Yes.
perhaps is at the heart of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So in this, I mean, as you said, there is a lot of information, there is a lot of GAN available, but still, I mean, in my coaching experience, talking to leaders, many leaders feel that, their teams are not that inspired towards learning. So
Mhm.
what can leaders do to inspire their teams, their people towards learning?
Yeah. I mean, I'm very fascinated with this point because, yeah, maybe I don't resonate with people not wanting to learn. So, but let me
Hmm.
kind of still imagine this. I mean, is it that leaders are trying to tell people you need to
Hmm.
do these learnings and that'll help you? Maybe that's not what's, helping. Perhaps
Hmm.
really understanding. Firstly, perhaps role modeling. I think once people see
Yeah.
the importance of how you've curated your life or shaped your life,
Yeah.
and how you continue to learn. So I think the first mistake I see many leaders make is to be that, now that I have, I don't know, 20 years of experience, 30 years of experience, I know and I can tell, versus saying I'm still learning because there's so much that I do not know. So I think role modeling, that vulnerable, I do not know and I want to know more, and keeping that curiosity life is the first thing that the leaders can do.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think instead of telling their teams on what they need to learn, if leaders can spend the time in perhaps getting in touch with the dreams and ambitions of their teams,
Yeah.
and then suggesting options and ways in which the teams can, or team members individually can actually realize their dream.
Yeah.
I think that kindles the fire because everyone wants to realize their own dreams. It's just that different people have different dreams, and different
Hmm.
people want to chase them at different pace, different styles, and in a very different way. So I think my if I had one advice to leaders who want to encourage or create that learning environment, would actually be get in touch with the dreams of your team members, get in
Yeah.
touch with their strengths and see what can you do to really amplify that and feed that,
Hmm.
and then you'll see them running behind developing themselves with great
Yeah.
confidence and great hunger.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's right. You put it beautifully. The word which is coming to my mind, with respect to what you said, is co-creating, being there for them, right?
Mm.
Being a partner
So
in
true.
their journey rather
Mm.
than
Mm.
enforcing it. Okay, you have to learn this and
Mm.
you should be learning. Nobody listens to should be.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. And I think interestingly, I mean, the converse is also true, right? I mean, there's so much that leaders can learn from their teams.
Absolutely.
And I think, yeah, I love your co-create,
Yeah.
analogy. I think as we all learn together, me from you and you from me, I
Yeah.
think we can all create a better version of ourselves. And I think
Absolutely.
in that is the natural, impetus to
Yeah.
grow and develop and learn.
Yeah. 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 And that's where that role modeling comes into play, as you said.
Yeah.
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 Cool. I'm sure, leaders are going to learn from these cues. And towards the end of our discussion, Mahalakshmi, how else learning can help professionals in today's chaotic VUCA world we are living in?
Yeah, I think the answer is in the question, because the reality is that the world is changing,
Yeah.
so some of the things that, once studied, if I take a very classical view of learning,
Hmm.
some of it perhaps is not relevant today. Some of it has completely gone through a jump shift. So I
Yeah.
think the simplest thing that learning can do for any professional who's chasing their growth or their development is really help them stay abreast,
Hmm.
help all of us stay adaptable in a very agile way, because the world keeps perpetually changing. The people we are working with, the agendas we are impacting keeps changing. And I mean, what a
Yeah.
better example than the current context, with COVID, etc. I
Yeah.
think staying abreast is what learning can do. It helps us all pivot to making an impact in an agile way, adapting to the new situation. And in
Hmm.
many ways, I think it helps us reach our own fulfillment, whatever is our
Absolutely.
dream or our aspiration of impact.
Yeah.
Uh, the journey becomes easier if you perpetually keep a learner's curious hat on. At
Yeah.
least that's my belief.
Yeah. I'm sure. I'm sure it's really, really very powerful. I guess. I'm sure all this is going to help my readers and viewers. Any last words, Mahalakshmi, for people's growth, learning attitude? Anything you want to say?
No, I think firstly, I want to once again compliment you for putting a book like this together. Which has not just tips and tricks, but also life stories. In fact, I spent some time reading up, on growth mindset and some of the other perspectives that came from the other stories that you had put together. So I do want to say a huge compliment to you, not only for balancing your profession with writing, which is fascinating, but also to kind of take these stories to our learners, and to the audience watching this. I would say, if you take life as a ongoing journey of evolving yourself and creating greater impact, it may not just be about getting a next promotion in the classical
Hmm.
sense of the word, but it may
Hmm.
be about really how can you develop and create either greater impact or get closer to your most cherished dreams.
Yeah.
And learning is something that will kind of come in really handy towards that.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really powerful. Thank you so much for your kind words also and compliments. It matters a lot to me. And I'm sure the nuggets you have shared today are going to help people reflect on their learning attitude, their styles, and what matters to them, what gives them energy. Everything it is going to help. Thanks everyone for watching this video, and do read Mahalakshmi's story in the book to gain insights from her wonderful journey and to learn from all the wisdom she has shared there. See you all again in the next video in this series, and do subscribe to this channel to watch more videos here to help you succeed in your journey. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Manveer.
Thank you, Mahalakshmi.